She sat on the edge of her bunk, elbows resting on her knees, staring at the quiet hum of the barracks hallway light beneath her door. A thin stripe of fluorescent glow cutting through darkness, a line she hadn't crossed in years. Her fingertips brushed the small scar behind her right ear, hidden beneath hair and memory. Pressure injury. That's what the paperwork said. Truth was uglier. There are wounds you don't give a name to. Wounds that don't bleed but echo. Tonight woke one. She leaned back slowly, spine sinking into the mattress, breath tight in her chest. Not fear, memory. The kind that knocks without asking permission. A voice surfaced, dusty, tired, familiar. "Come up, Walsh, don't push the dive, you hear me, Walsh." A heartbeat. A hiss of static. Then a silence that never ended. She shut her eyes once and forced the memory back into the box she'd built for it. Not tonight. Tonight wasn't about ghosts. It was about lines crossed in a cheap tavern by boys who didn't yet understand consequence, or the woman they chose to confront. Outside her door, boots passed. Laughter echoed, then hushed when they reached her hall. She didn't need to see their faces to know the change. Recruits walk different when reality introduces itself. Back straighter, voices lower. The way young men adjust when ego meets truth. A few whispered. She didn't even blink. She could have crushed him. She chose. Rumor had turned to respect faster than bruises could bloom. But respect wasn't what she wanted. Not from them. Not anymore. She wanted balance. She wanted a world where silence wasn't mistaken for softness, where discipline wasn't weakness, and a woman didn't have to roar to be heard. Her phone vibrated once. A message from Tors, the old diver, the one who saw things the way few did. Heard, saw, don't carry it alone. She almost smiled. Almost. Walsh typed back. Never do. 3 words efficient, untelling. Her style always. But her hands paused above the screen for 1 extra second. Some things still hurt. Some nights still reminded her. She rubbed her jaw tender but already fatting. Pain was temporary, purpose wasn't. A knock hit her door, firm, controlled, familiar cadence, military, confident, respectful. Walsh opened it without asking who. Master Chief Tors stood there, hands behind his back, jaw sharp as a carved oak beam. His uniform still smelled faintly of ocean salt, even on land. Men like him carried the sea. "You good?" he asked. No salute. No rank formalities. Just truth. "I am." He studied her, not the bruise, the eyes. Eyes tell the part skin hides. "You planning to escalate?" he asked. No. She exhaled steady, not unless they do. Tors nodded once, in approval or warning, maybe both. "Marine Command called," he said. "They'll handle it." "They'll try," she corrected. "There's a difference." He didn't argue. Men like him rarely wasted air. "You ever think about walking away?" he asked suddenly. She didn't answer right away. The question wasn't new. It was just sharp tonight. "Every year," she said, honest, quiet. "Every year I wonder if the fight is worth the fatigue." "And every year you stay." "Every year I stay," she echoed. "Why?" She searched for the simplest truth, the one without pride, without armor. Because the right ones deserve someone who doesn't quit first. Tors let a breath slip, heavy, proud. "You know, Walsh." He paused, words selected with a veteran's precision. "There are warriors who fight enemies, and then there are warriors who fight culture." She looked at him, not as a subordinate, but as equal. "Only one of those battles leaves a bruise," she said. He glanced at her cheek. "It'll fade." "Some don't." He didn't argue. Some truths don't need discussion. "Get sleep," he said finally. "Tomorrow isn't done with you." She nodded. "Tomorrow never is." He walked away. His footsteps were steady, not heavy, not hesitant. There's a way men walk when they trust the soldier they just left behind. She closed the door gently. Silence returned, but it felt different now. Not loneliness, not isolation. Just quiet before storm. Morning cracked open with gray skies and cold air, the kind that wakes bone before mind. Reveille played in the distance. Boots hit ground in cadence. Engines rolled. Routines reset. Walsh stood in front of her locker, uniform neat, boots laced tight, hair braided with precision. She looked in the mirror not at beauty but order. Control isn't vanity. It's armor. Outside, recruits formed lines. Instructor voices cut through fog. And whispers flowed like current under every breath. She's running the joint endurance today. You going? No choice. What if she? Don't finish that sentence. Fear wasn't what she inspired. Something heavier. Respect born too late still counts, barely. She walked across the gravel to the training yard. Everything slowed, eyes followed, conversations paused, posture shifted. Not because she demanded it. Because she earned it. That's the difference between rank and presence. Rank is worn. Presence is felt. And presence, real presence, doesn't shout. It arrives. She scanned the group. SEALs, Marines, corpsmen. Every rank from humility to arrogance lined in front of her. Corporal Dunn stood there too, stiff, eyes forward, jaw locked, bruise forming where consequences had kissed him earlier. He didn't look at her. She didn't look at him. Some battles don't need eye contact to hurt. Her voice cut through the quiet, calm, firm, clean like winter air. Today isn't punishment, she began. Soft gasp, confusion ripple. It's standard, you show up, you work, you earn. Simple words. Heavy meaning. No mention of last night. No humiliation. No ego. Just duty. Because dignity doesn't chase applause, it commands it. Partner, water extraction sequence. Failure equals repetition. Someone swallowed hard, someone else murmured. Dunn's shoulders tightened. Walsh didn't smile. She simply watched them move, 40 bodies shifting into motion. Some confident, some afraid, all curious about the woman who had taken a punch and answered with restraint instead of rage. Her lips thinned. Not in anger, in memory. Another place, another fight. Sand instead of rain. A voice she couldn't save. We're coming back for you, hold on. Static, a scream swallowed by dust. Then quiet. That kind of quiet never leaves you. Water splashed as first pairs jumped in. Mist rose. Boots scraped deck. Breath burned lungs. A recruit surfaced early, coughing. Another dragged the dummy wrong. A whistle blew across the yard, another instructor correcting hard. Walsh didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She studied movement, the smallest failings. Grip wrong. Breathing panicked. Eyes losing focus, not from fatigue but doubt. Everyone has a limit. War doesn't test muscle, it tests breakpoints. Dunn and his partner hit the water on command. He moved strong, aggressive, not precise. His partner rushed. Anchor slipped. Failure. Walsh didn't gloat. Didn't smirk. Didn't speak. She simply signaled again. Reset, reattempt. Intensity isn't punishment. It's instruction. Somewhere behind them, a junior SEAL whispered. Why isn't she angry? The answer wasn't language, it was posture. Anger is loud. Control is quiet. And her quiet was terrifying. The attempt failed again. And then, without removing her boots, without announcing it, she entered the water. Smooth dive. Clean descent. She resurfaced slow, dragging the full 185 lb dummy with one arm. No gasp, no grunt, just effort wrapped in silence. She lifted the dummy onto the platform, dropped it, walked out, water streaming off sleeves like she was carved from tide itself. Every throat in the yard tightened. Not fear, not awe. Lesson. A Marine whispered, reverent. She doesn't react, she responds. Exactly. Reaction is emotion. Response is discipline. Walsh pulled off her vest, calm, mechanical. Somewhere across the yard, the chain of command shifted. Not spoken. Not written. Felt. She didn't need to punish boys in a bar. She needed to show them a mirror and let them choose who they wanted to be in it. Even Dunn felt it, shame, frustration, respect tangled in his chest like wires sparking under skin. He hated her. He admired her. He feared her. Mostly, he knew he deserved all of this. Walsh wiped water from her jaw. The bruise wasn't hidden. She didn't hide things earned. Her breath steadied. Another recruit jumped. Another struggled. Another learned. And over all of it, one truth hung heavy. Strength isn't loud. It's patient. And tonight, patience had chosen its teacher. Where does control end and truth begin? Walsh thought about that the next morning before dawn, when the sky was still the color of steel and every breath tasted like cold metal. The kind of air that wakes the past before it wakes the body. She didn't run with the others at 500. She didn't join the cadence call echoing across the base. She stood alone at the bay edge, boots planted, watching the water darken as the first light touched it. Still water tells the truth about a person. Some surface calm hides violence beneath. Some hides grief. Some hides nothing, just stillness earned. She stretched her shoulder slowly, rolling it back against the faint ache. The injury had healed years ago, but memory leaves traces muscle never fully forgets. The wind pulled at her collar. She let it. Footsteps behind her measured, respectful, waiting to be acknowledged. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. Commander Walsh, a voice said. Young, crisp, trying hard not to reveal nerves. Morning, petty officer. Her reply was quiet, even. He stepped closer but not beside her, a subtle show of deference, like a soldier standing just offline from a senior officer who didn't need ritual to command space. Joint Ops schedule been updated. They're pulling Marines from today's water drills until the inquiry finishes. She nodded once, eyes still on water. They afraid of appearances? She asked. He hesitated. I think they're afraid of you, ma'am. She almost smiled, but only on the inside. Fear wasn't the point. It was never the point. Fear changes nothing. Understanding does. Tell training command I'll adjust rotation, she said, turning finally. And tell them not to confuse restraint with surrender. Yes, ma'am, he answered, posture straightening as though the air itself shifted around her. Then he jogged off. Alone again. Water rippled gently in front of her. Walsh's reflection stared back, calm eyes, tired beneath steadiness, bruise still faint but real, proof, not of violence, of choice. She had taken one hit, so the system could swing back. That's the difference between reaction and strategy. Someone once told her, some fights require fists, others require patience. Know the difference. She learned that lesson the hard way, with sand in her throat, a radio crackling, and a friend bleeding out beside her with no cover and no backup coming fast enough. Patience had saved them. Panic would have killed them. But patience demands pain. And the world rarely thanks the silent ones who carry it. 800 hours. Briefing hall, SEAL training wing. Voices low, notes shuffled, screens flickered blue tactical charts. But when she entered, silence spread like tide swallowing shore. Not fear, tension. Not guilt, expectation. Nobody wanted to look directly at her cheek, but curiosity pulled eyes like gravity. Not because she was bruised, because she was unbent. She walked to the front without waiting for introduction. Lieutenant commander or not, authority wasn't about rank today, it was about presence. She set her folder down, gloves tucked into her belt, shoulders squared but relaxed, like she was carved from stillness and storms both. Training objectives for the day, she began, voice low, even. We're shifting focus, adaptive endurance, variable pressure response, emotional discipline under operational stress. Not anger, not revenge. Recalibration. Recruits listened harder than they breathed. War doesn't choose timing, she continued. Neither will we. A SEAL candidate, Martinez, raised his hand, hesitant but brave. Ma'am, yesterday what you did. She cut him off gently. What happened yesterday is not today's lesson. But it. Martinez, she said, steady. If you are thinking about yesterday in a fight, you will not live to see tomorrow. Train your mind to stay where your boots are. His chest rose, fell, and he nodded, chastened but grateful. A Marine captain in the back brought in as liaison shifted in his seat, jaw clenched with conflicted pride and embarrassment. Marines hated losing face, but today wasn't about face. Today was about accountability. Walsh scanned the room, meeting eyes without flinching, without challenge, just presence. Strength, she said quietly, is not the absence of pain. It is deciding who you become after you feel it. Silence answered. Respect thickened the air. And beneath it all, Dunn. Second row, center. Hands flat, back rigid, breathing slow like a man trying to remember how to be human again, instead of ego in uniform. He didn't blink, didn't move. Every word hit him like sandpaper. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. Some lessons burn longer when they're not delivered eye to eye. 9:30 hours. Training yard, obstacle gauntlet. Wind picked up. Equipment clanked. Rope line swayed slightly. Walsh stood with hands behind her back, watching bodies move. Sweat, breath, grit. The base smelled like metal and effort, a scent she trusted more than polished conference rooms where truth softened under rank and protocol. Dunn ran the wall climb, boots scraping, muscles straining. His effort was raw, not pride this time, urgency. Shame can refine or destroy a man. Today it was tempering him. He slipped halfway up, caught himself, jaw tightened, pushed on. Almost fell again, then forced through it with a shout he bit back before it left his throat. Not anger, desperation. Desperation to rewrite who he had been 48 hours ago. Walsh watched, unblinking. When he finished, breath ragged, muscles trembling, he came to her. Not to argue, not to demand, to stand in front of the storm without asking if it would spare him. Permission to speak, ma'am. She nodded. I was wrong. Not loud, not dramatic. Just honest, the hardest tone a broken ego finds. You were angry, she corrected softly. He swallowed, and weak. She didn't soften. Compassion without truth is cowardice. No, she said, weakness doesn't punch down, ego does. His gaze flickered, shame cutting deeper. Do you think you're better than who you were? She asked, not accusing, evaluating. I'm trying to be. She stepped closer, not threatening, grounding. Trying is a start, but don't mistake effort for change. Change shows up in who you protect, not who you challenge. He nodded slowly, painful, necessary. Go hydrate, she finished, and don't chase redemption in public, earn it in silence. He walked away, not lighter but straighter. Some burdens, when acknowledged, lift just enough to let someone stand again. For a moment she let her shoulders drop, just an inch, just long enough to feel the weight inside her spine instead of behind her ribs. The wind turned colder. She welcomed it. Cold wakes the soul in ways heat never can. A soft voice behind her. He trying to impress you or punish himself? She turned. Tor stood there again, hands in pockets, watching Dunn disappear around the water station. "He's learning who he doesn't want to be," she replied. "That's harder than punishment." "Harder than forgiveness, too," Tors murmured. "Yes," she agreed quietly, "especially forgiving yourself." He looked at her then, truly looked, saw what others missed. "You ever forgive yourself for Kandahar?" he asked. Her jaw stilled, not clenched still. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Silence was answer enough. He exhaled through his nose, slow. Veteran empathy, the kind that doesn't pity, just understands. "You carry ghosts well," he said finally. "I don't carry them," she murmured. "I walk beside them." A beat, then another. "Command wants you to brief the Joint Ethics Unit next week," Tors said, "about restraint under provocation." She huffed the faintest breath, almost a laugh, dark-edged. "They want me to teach officers how not to throw punches. They want you to show what control looks like in real life." "Control," she repeated softly, eyeing the training yard. "Funny thing about control, most people only respect it when they see what it's holding back." He didn't disagree. She looked at him. Not commander to senior enlisted. Just soldier to soldier. "Tors," she said quietly, "do you ever wonder how many battles we fight just to remain decent?" He smiled without joy. "Only every morning." She nodded once, that was enough. Later, when the yard thinned and sweat dried into salt on skin, she sat on the bleachers alone, drinking lukewarm water and letting quiet settle around her like armor cooling after heat. A group of newer recruits passed nearby, whispering, not mocking, curious. "She doesn't yell. She doesn't need to. Think she's scary?" "No, I think she's heavier than the rest of us." Heavy? Not a bad word. Not wrong. Leadership isn't loud. It's heavy. The weight of staying human when violence sits inside your bones. Walsh watched a bird land on the far fence. Small, ordinary, but free. Freedom looks peaceful from the outside. Inside, it requires sacrifice. She closed her eyes briefly, breath slow. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without introduction. "Walsh." Static, then a voice, one she hadn't heard in months. Low, controlled, but carrying its own bruise. "You still keeping your promise?" the voice asked. Her heartbeat slowed, time thinned. "Always," she said. "Good," the voice replied, "because they're calling your name again, and this time it's not just training." Click. Call ended. She stared ahead. Face calm. Pulse steady. Storm coming. History doesn't knock twice. It storms the door when you finally sit down to rest. She stood, rolled her shoulders. The bruise on her cheek didn't matter now. That was yesterday's story. Today was bigger. And tomorrow. Tomorrow might demand the part of her she kept hidden under discipline and silence. The part that didn't break. The part that didn't forgive easily. The part forged in a desert where radio static replaced heartbeats. The part she promised to only unleash for the right reason. And reason was approaching, like thunder on distant horizon. As she walked back toward the armory, boots crunching gravel, she knew something with absolute clarity. Correction had been achieved for one boy. But war, the real kind, was calling again. And this time, silence wouldn't just be her weapon. It would be her warning. Because dignity doesn't whisper forever. Sometimes it stands. Sometimes it moves. Sometimes it answers the call no one else hears. And sometimes, silence becomes the storm. What happens to a warrior when peace feels like a trick? That question lingered as Walsh walked the long corridor toward the briefing wing. Concrete walls, yellow safety lines, fluorescent lights humming overhead like an old memory refusing to die. She didn't rush. Rushing was panic. and panic had no place inside bones that had seen real war. Her cheek still carried the faint shadow of that tavern night, but bruises fade. Culture shifts slower, and somewhere between quiet footsteps and the hum of ventilation, the weight she'd felt on that phone call settled deeper. Something was coming. Not training, not discipline, not ego correction. Something bigger. Real. Dangerous in a way the base drills never simulated. She could feel it in the back of her neck, that old sixth sense born from nights where silence hid shapes moving closer and sand whispered under boots. A feeling she hoped she had buried, but the dead don't stay buried when the world still needs what they carried. The briefing room door hissed open. Officers turned. Not all looked directly at her, guilt, respect, politics all wrestling under neat uniforms. Commander Holland sat at the table's head, back straight, folders organized with painful symmetry. He looked tired not physically but morally. Some men age by years, commanders age by burden. "Walsh," he said, voice firm but softer than usual. She nodded once, took a seat at the far corner, not isolation, distance for clarity. "We have a developing situation," Holland began. "Intelligence out of North Africa, unverified chatter." Her heartbeat slowed, not sped. The body prepares in silence long before adrenaline comes. He slid a file forward, classified markings, red stamp, priority threat evaluation. Walsh didn't open it yet. She listened first. "Former Allied militia cells regrouping," he continued. "Possible foreign funding. Possible American contractor involvement, off books. No overt action yet, but intelligence wants eyes on." Someone across the table sighed, a lieutenant with polished shoes and rusted judgment. "This again, every 6 months a ghost army rumor." Holland cut him off with a glare. "These are not rumors. Satellite recon shows consolidation patterns." The lieutenant looked embarrassed. Walsh didn't bother watching him shrink. The world didn't have time for men who dismissed threat because it hadn't reached their doorstep yet. Her voice entered the room like it always did, low, precise, unhurried. "What's the ask?" Holland leaned forward. "Observation, verification, no engagement unless absolutely necessary." She studied him. "You're understating." He exhaled, not deceiving, restraining. "We need someone off the radar, with judgment." His eyes held hers, someone who knows restraint. A subtle reference, bar fight, bruise, video, public silence turned private respect. "You want me to confirm if a storm is building," she said. "Yes. And if it is, then we call thunder." She nodded once, that was enough. "Who else?" she asked. "2 intel specialists, 1 comms tech, and," he hesitated, "we're assigning a Marine liaison for inter-branch transparency." Her jaw ticked once. A Marine, on a mission seated in covert soil, political correctness at war with operational reality. She didn't argue, she calculated. "Name?" she asked. Holland cleared his throat. "Corporal Dunn." The room shifted temperature. Air thickened. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to buzz louder. Walsh didn't react outwardly. Stillness held like weapon. "Request alternate," someone muttered near the end of the table. "Too soon." Holland shook his head. "Correction has happened. I believe in proving growth, not punishing mistakes." The moral high ground always sounded noble from polished chairs. Walsh didn't move. "Dunn isn't ready," she said quietly. Holland studied her. "Or he's learning fast because he had to." She didn't disagree. She didn't agree either. "Operational risk," she said. "And operational opportunity," he countered. Someone shifted uncomfortably. Stakes smelled different when they turned human. Holland leaned closer. "Walsh, I trust your judgment, but this is also about culture, about leadership, about showing the system what discipline looks like." There it was. The the political heartbeat inside the tactical body. She didn't sigh, she didn't blink. "He'll follow my orders," she said, a statement, not a question. Holland nodded. "You have full authority." Authority wasn't the issue, burden was. She accepted anyway, quietly like always. "Mission briefing at 1900 hours," Holland finished. "Gear list to follow, paperwork already in process." She rose. "Understood." As she walked out, voices resumed low, tense, trying to process the decision. But command didn't always choose comfort. Sometimes it chose the hardest path on purpose. And Walsh, she had long ago learned that leadership wasn't about who followed behind you. It was about who you refused to leave broken. 1500 hours. Training bay, quiet between cycles. Dunn stood alone, hands on knees, breathing through a set of pull-ups. Sweat soaked his back. Effort, not ego. Progress, not show. Walsh approached without sound. He sensed her before he saw her, instinct sharpened by shame and respect tangled tight. He dropped from the bar, straightened, didn't speak. She watched him wipe sweat from his brow, but the real heat was behind his eyes, that raw, uncomfortable fire of someone trying to change, without knowing if the person they're becoming will ever outshine who they were yesterday. "We deploy soon," she said. He froze. "Deploy?" "Yes." His jaw worked, processing, fear. No, not of danger, fear of failure, fear of being given a chance he didn't deserve. "Why me?" he asked finally, voice not defensive, wounded curiosity. "Ask command." "I'm asking you." She studied him, not the uniform, the man wearing it. "You made a mistake," she said. "One born from pride, not malice. That kind can be corrected." "And you think it is?" "I think you're bleeding for it," she said. "That's the first step." He swallowed hard. "And if I fail again?" "Then you learn again," she said, "but not at someone else's expense." His eyes dropped. Shame lived there, but something else too. Resolve, humility, maybe even gratitude wrapped in quiet pain. "I won't disappoint you," he whispered. She didn't flinch. "Don't make this about me. Make it about who you want to be when nobody's filming." A shiver passed through him, truth hitting bone. She turned to leave. "Ma'am," he called softly. She paused. "That night, why didn't you fight? You could have broken us." She looked at him slowly, deeply. "Because breaking you would have been easy," she said. "And easy rarely teaches anything worth learning." His breath caught. No comeback, no defense, just understanding dawning like slow sunrise. She walked away. And he understood the lesson too late to undo what brought him there, but soon enough to change everything going forward. Evening brought orange light bleeding across base rooftops, shadows stretching long like tired soldiers at parade rest. Walsh sat on a bench outside her quarters, polishing her boots, ritual more than need. Discipline isn't clean leather, it's consistency. A soft breeze carried sounds, distant cadence, hum of generators, metal clank from motor pool. Peace, in a place built for war. She didn't trust peace. She had seen too much to believe quiet came without cost. Her phone buzzed again, unknown number, same one. She answered. "Walsh." A breath on the line, heavy, controlled. "You're coming," the voice said, not a question. Statement carved from fatigue and urgency. Someone she knew once. Someone tied to that desert memory, that dive scar, that radio static. "Tell me it's real intel," she said. "You'll see soon." Silence, then softer. "You ready?" She didn't hesitate. "I don't know how to be anything else." A pause heavy with history. "Watch the quiet ones out there," the voice said. "It's always the quiet ones." Call ended. She stared ahead, breath steady, soul braced. Tomorrow wasn't training. Tomorrow was a line. And lines change people. A low whisper escaped her, not prayer, not fear, just truth spoken to the night. War never leaves, it waits. And dignity. Sometimes it doesn't speak. Sometimes it deploys. How do you prepare for a mission when the real battlefield is inside you? Walsh felt the question settle in her chest as she zipped her duffel in silence. The room around her was meticulous, boots aligned, uniforms crisp, bed tight enough to bounce a coin. Discipline wasn't habit, it was survival. But somewhere beneath the precision lived a weight she never talked about, one heavier than rucks and steel plates. A weight that came from knowing what waits beyond orders and maps. War wasn't loud. War was quiet right before it swallowed you. And tonight the quiet felt familiar. Outside her window, sunset bled into dusk, colors thinning, shadows growing. Bases at night always had a hum, not noise, but energy. Anticipation lived here, 1 hour from briefing, 1 hour from stepping off the clean lines of controlled training into the messy truth of real consequence. A knock at her door, controlled, respectful, not tentative. Enter. Dunn stood there, uniform neat, pack slung, jaw set with the determination of a man who refused to fall twice in the same place. His eyes held the storm of someone trying to prove worth not to the world, but to himself. "Ma'am," he said. She nodded. "You're early." Figured showing up late to a second chance would be unwise. A flicker of something, humor, respect, ghosted through her eyes before disappearing. Good instinct. He stepped inside but didn't sit, standing at attention, not from protocol, but from need, the need to show he belonged here even if a part of him still feared he didn't. "You ever get afraid before deployment?" he asked quietly, almost ashamed of the vulnerability in his voice. She didn't answer right away. Fear wasn't weakness. Fear was awareness sharpened to survival edge. Only fools and dead men lacked fear before duty called. "Yes," she said, "every time." He blinked, surprised despite himself. "But you never show it." "Control isn't the absence of fear," she said. "It's the decision not to let fear choose your actions." His throat tightened as the words settled into him like weight and guidance intertwined. "Why me?" he asked again, this time softer, rawer. She lifted her duffel, slinging it with practiced ease. "Because some lessons are earned by living them, and some men don't get better because they're punished. They get better because they're trusted again." His breath shook, the way a soldier breathes when the world gives him a second chance, and he doesn't know if he deserves it, but he will bleed to prove he does. "Don't mistake this for forgiveness," she added. "Forgiveness is personal, this is duty." "Yes, ma'am." "And duty," she said, meeting his eyes, "is heavier." He nodded once, not a salute, not obedience, acknowledgement. She walked past him, he followed. Outside, evening air bit with chill, grounding nerves into focus. Mission brief room, 1900 hours. The room smelled like coffee, cold steel, and tension. No one spoke aloud. Maps glowed on the screen, dossiers stacked neat. Comms gear sat ready. Holland stood at the head, hands clasped behind him, expression cut from stone and sleepless nights. Walsh entered, conversations died. Dunn followed, eyes flicked toward him, not hostile, not mocking, simply measuring. Marines knew their own history. Bases held memory longer than people did. Holland cleared his throat. "Operation Winter Glass," he began. "Unconfirmed insurgent reformation outside Tamanrasset. Low visibility zone. Satellite intel limited." He clicked a slide. Sparse structures, desert ridges, old militia routes. The kind of place empires forgot until blood spilled again. "A small observation cell was inserted last week," Holland continued. "They went dark." A chill crawled quiet through the room. Walsh felt her pulse shift, not quickening, narrowing. Combat clarity wasn't speed, it was stillness razor sharp. Holland's voice lowered. "No confirmed casualties, no distress signal, but silence from a trained team is itself signal." Dunn swallowed. Walsh spoke measured, rules of engagement. Eyes first, hands only if necessary, recovery priority if hostiles confirmed. And command chain, she pressed. You lead in field. However, Holland paused, gaze sweeping the team. This op has external oversight. That meant politics. She didn't react, just adjusted expectation. A CIA liaison stepped forward. Young suit, shoes too new, eyes too sure, the kind of certainty that came from theory, not mud and blood. This operation also tests inter-branch integration, he said. Dunn's jaw clenched. Walsh's face stayed still. Trust will be essential, the liaison added. Walsh finally spoke. Trust is earned, not ordered. The liaison blinked like someone corrected by a teacher they didn't expect to respect. Holland broke tension. Wheels up 2300, brief comms blackout during transit. People stood, chairs scraped, gear was checked, rituals began. Walsh stepped away, checking her carbine, rotation smooth, movements memorized by years, not days. The liaison approached cautiously. Commander, may I speak freely? She didn't look up. You can speak. Whether it's useful is another matter. He swallowed. I hear you're intense. She stopped loading a mag, raised one brow, amused but unimpressed. That what they say? That and that you don't lose. She slid the mag in with a clean click. You heard wrong. I lose all the time, I just don't quit. The liaison exhaled, not relief, realization. Dunn overheard. Something changed in his posture, like understanding found bone. Pre-deployment locker bay. Gear stacked, helmets hanging, weapons lined neat as graves, fluorescent lights buzzing. This was the church where warriors prepared. Dunn strapped his vest, fingers slightly shaky, not fear, consequence. This mission wasn't punishment, it was mirror. Walsh tightened her straps, weapons checked silent but flawless. She didn't look at him, yet she saw everything. You breathing? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Good, only fools stop breathing before the fight. He let out a small breath that might have been a laugh, or relief. She sat tying bootlaces slow, precise. Dunn watched, learning without being taught. Ma'am, he asked after a moment. Yes. You ever think, maybe you were built for war more than peace? She finished tying, sat back, looked straight at him, and for the first time he saw not the unshakable warrior but the human beneath. I was built to protect peace, she said. War is just where peace sends its last defenders. Dunn's throat tightened, not sadness, respect. She stood, helmet clipped, rifle slung. You ready? She asked. No, he said honestly, but I will be. Good, she replied. Anyone who's certain shouldn't go. He nodded, spine straighter now, fear still there but aligned, useful. A tech approached. Blackout begins in 60 seconds. Walsh exhaled once, let it settle, then. Walk with purpose, she said to Dunn. They moved. Airfield. Night wind hit like truth. Cold, real, unapologetic. Engines hummed. Prop rotors spun slow, waiting. The C-130 ramp loomed like the mouth of fate. Somewhere before the plane, Dunn hesitated, just one step. Walsh didn't stop walking, but her voice reached him. Fear is normal, she said. Failure isn't fatal, hesitation is. He inhaled, stepped forward. When they reached the ramp, he looked at her. What if I mess up out there? She didn't sugarcoat. Then you learn fast or you die fast. He nodded, accepting. What about you? She looked into the dark belly of the aircraft, the place where duty swallowed peace. I already learned, she murmured. What? She stepped into shadow. No one survives war unchanged. He followed. Ramp closed. Engines roared. Base lights shrank. Walsh sat, eyes forward, still as steel at rest. Behind quiet lashes, memory flickered sandstorms, blood in comms, a name unspoken since Kandahar, a promise carved into bone. She whispered without sound, not prayer, not fear, but vow. If peace calls me, I answer. If war calls me, I endure. If someone breaks faith with the quiet ones, I return. Somewhere over dark ocean the aircraft leveled, lights dimmed, Dunn exhaled. Holland's words echoed in her head. You teach restraint. And restraint didn't mean softness. It meant choosing when the storm arrives. Tonight it traveled with her. And tomorrow would test the difference between silence and judgment. What changes a person more, the danger ahead, or the ghosts they bring with them? Hours into flight, darkness wrapped the cabin like a second uniform. Engines hummed steady, vibrating into bone, into memory, into that quiet place soldiers rarely let themselves sit inside. The team sat strapped in, helmets nested between boots, eyes half closed but never fully at rest. Walsh didn't sleep. She didn't try. Some warriors closed their eyes to escape the waiting. She kept hers open to confront it. Across the aisle, Dunn fought his own stillness, breathing steady, but fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against his vest. Not panic, preparation. The brain sharpening sharper than steel, rehearsing every step that hadn't happened yet. Night flight, no chatter, no distraction. Just the hum of reality drawing near. A crew chief moved down the aisle, checking straps, gear, nodding once when he reached Walsh. Respect without words. The kind built from rumor and reputation rather than greeting cards and confident speeches. Walsh kept her gaze on the floor for a moment, metal rivets, oil smell, faint red glow under cabin lights. Planes always smelled like history to her. Steel and sweat and the scent of choices you don't get back. Across from her, the intel specialist, Jacobs, leaned forward, whispering. You ever get the feeling missions know who we are before we arrive? Walsh's eyes shifted to him, young, too thoughtful for espionage. The kind who still believed human behavior could be predicted with math. She envied that once. She lost it somewhere between dust storms and orders that saved nations but cost pieces of soul. Missions don't know us, she said. They reveal us. Jacob swallowed, nodding like he understood. He didn't, not yet. Dunn listened. He understood too well. The cargo bay creaked slightly as the aircraft hit a thermal. Dunn gripped his harness instinctively. Walsh noticed, always noticing. You thinking through worst-case scenarios? She asked quietly. He met her gaze, trying, but I don't know enough to map them all. Good, she said. People who think they know every outcome get blindsided. So what do? He asked. She leaned her head back against the bulkhead. I make peace with the unknown, not the illusion of control. Dunn nodded slowly. That kind of advice didn't come from textbooks. It came from surviving the kind of night the military never puts on recruitment posters. The CIA liaison sat stiff across the aisle, tablet glowing faint intelligence summaries. He kept glancing at Walsh, as if trying to decode her. He'd read her file. He knew medals and missions, but paper never explains a person who survives more than they speak about. Finally, he cleared his throat. You seem calm, he said. Walsh didn't turn to him. Calm is a decision, not a condition. You don't seem rattled. I don't rattle, she replied evenly. I observe. He hesitated. And what do you see now? Walsh finally looked at him, not hostile, not dismissive, just deeply, quietly honest. A plane full of people pretending fear and readiness aren't the same thing. Silence followed. Even the engine hum felt like it lowered in deference. The liaison didn't respond. And Walsh leaned forward slightly, elbows on her knees, voice low enough only Dunn and Jacobs heard. If you stop fearing the moment you deploy, that means you've died inside. And dead men don't make sound decisions. Dunn exhaled through his nose, release, not weakness. Real truth always lands heavy before it sets you free. The cockpit door opened slightly. A loadmaster leaned out. "Commander," he called, 10 minutes to drop altitude. Walsh stood, pulling her gloves on slow, like ritual. Dunn mimicked without thinking, learning through rhythm the military never wrote down but every real operator knew. She walked to the small circular window by the ramp. Black sky. No moon. No horizon. The kind of darkness that didn't hide truth, it revealed who could move without needing light. The aircraft began its descent. Subtle shift, pressure change, cabin lights dimming further. Walsh whispered quietly, a soldier's prayer not for victory but clarity. "Let the right part of me show up. The part that protects. The part that endures. The part that remembers why she fights, not just how." A shadow slid through her mind, uninvited sandstorm, medic's voice screaming coordinates, radio bleeding panic. She shut it out with a breath. Not denial, containment. Jacobs leaned forward. "Commander, what happened in Kandahar?" Dunn shot him a quick look, the kind recruits give when someone unknowingly taps a landmine. Walsh didn't turn. "That question belongs to another time," she said softly, "and another version of me." Jacobs nodded slowly. He understood now, not the story but the boundary. The plane leveled, ramp lock engaged, final checks. Dunn's voice came low. "If this mission goes sideways." She didn't let him finish. "If it goes sideways, we adapt," she said. "We don't panic, we don't blame, we move. And if we can't move, then we endure," she replied. "And endurance is its own kind of movement." He swallowed, grounding truth deeper. Landing zone 220 hours. Remote desert airstrip. No runway lights. Tarmac cracked and forgotten. Wind carrying dust like memory across steel. The ramp lowered. Cold night air rushed in, smelling of sand, distance, and possibility. Walsh stepped off first, boots on foreign soil. No ceremony, just quiet arrival. Dunn followed, adrenaline tightening every muscle but footsteps steady. Jacobs tech liaison behind. Small team, small footprint. The kind of insertion meant to observe, not roar. Their local contact met them, desert camo, face wrapped in scarf, eyes sharp. "Commander Walsh," he greeted, accent dusty but confident. "You're our ground source?" she asked. "Yes, call sign, Anvil." "Any contact from missing team?" she asked. He shook his head. "Last signal 3 days ago, no distress beacon, just silence." Silence again, the universe's oldest warning. Walsh studied him, terrain. Ridge country, narrow passes, old smuggler routes, GPS dirty, comms patchy. And sentiment. He paused, a heartbeat. Locals uneasy, something moving in the hills, not militia, not known tribes, something disciplined. Jacob stiffened, Dunn's breath shortened, Walsh nodded once. "Vehicles." Anvil motioned to 3 battered pickups, modified suspensions, camo nets draped over gear. "Dust quiet," he said, "engines tuned for silence." Walsh slung her rifle, checked mag, no rush, precision. "Mount up," she ordered. Convoy 240 hours. Engines rumbling low, headlights off, night vision halos washing terrain in ghost green. Dunn rode passenger seat in Walsh's truck. His jaw clenched every time the road dipped, every time rocks scraped metal. "You feel it?" Walsh asked quietly, eyes scanning horizon. He glanced at her. "Feel what?" "The air changing." He paused, closed his eyes, listened, not with ears, with instinct. Wind had a different pitch now. Night insects vanished. Even the truck seemed to hum lower, cautious. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "Good," she said, recognizing the wrong is half the job. And the other half? Responding before the wrong becomes irreversible. He nodded, simple idea, heavy cost. The liaison tapped his earpiece, signal interference spiking, someone jamming. Walsh didn't answer. Instead, she tapped the window frame twice, tactical signal. Anvil's truck ahead slowed. The convoy tightened formation. Jacobs leaned forward, something on thermal. He froze. Walsh already raised her rifle halfway, safety off but finger outside trigger, discipline to the end. "What do you see?" she asked. Jacobs' voice cracked. Cold signatures, multiple shapes, too still to be animals. Dunn scanned nothing but ridge shadows, but training kicked in. Still isn't safety. Stillness is watchfulness. Walsh leaned slightly toward the windshield. Green night vision glow cast her face in war shadow. "Passive posture," she murmured. "No sudden light, no chatter." The team obeyed instantly. The shapes didn't move. Somewhere far off, metal clinked, small, intentional, like gear being adjusted. Dunn whispered, "Eyes on us." Walsh didn't blink, waiting, testing our reaction. Jacobs swallowed. "What do we do?" "We don't give away intent." She lowered her rifle 2 inches, purposeful calm. Then she spoke, not to her team but to the dark. "If you wanted us dead," she said quietly, "you would have fired." Dunn's blood chilled. She wasn't wrong. Silence like this wasn't ambush. It was warning, a language older than tactics. "Drive," she told Anvil, "slow." The truck crept forward. The shapes didn't follow, didn't retreat, just watched. Ghosts or men? Hard to tell in the places where war never officially lived, but never died either. Dunn looked at Walsh. "You're not scared?" She looked ahead, jaw set, breath steady. "Fear isn't absence," she said. "It's management. And right now." She exhaled softly. "Right now I remember Kandahar, and how silence before contact is never silence." He nodded, the kind of nod men give when truth cuts but clarifies. After 30 more minutes, the convoy rolled into a dried riverbed. Natural concealment, good cover, enough distance to regroup without being watched. Engines cut, dust settled, night thickened. Walsh stepped out first, scanned sky, dirt, air. Dunn followed, rifle low, his voice low too. "You think the missing team is alive?" Walsh didn't answer right away. She looked at the stars hidden behind sand haze, as if searching for a signal only she could read. "Hope says yes," she said. "Experience says prepare for anything." "And you?" She met his eyes. There was no hardness, no softness, just truth. "I don't grieve uncertainty. I respect it until facts arrive." He inhaled. "You make it sound simple." "It's not," she said. "It's discipline, emotional, not tactical. And discipline hurts. Only all the time." Dunn looked down. "I'm trying, ma'am." "I know." She said it like fact, not comfort. Footsteps approached. The liaison tablet tucked, face pale with realization. Those signatures, they weren't random. Walsh didn't look at him. "Nothing here is random." He swallowed. "This isn't just recon, something's building." Walsh finally turned, voice a whisper sharpened by decades of truths the world never printed. "War never announces itself. It waits for the unprepared. We are not unprepared." The wind carried sand across boots like old ghosts brushing past. Quiet, steady, inevitable. Dunn spoke again, smaller now but stronger too. "You think we'll find the missing team?" Walsh didn't blink, didn't soften. "We don't find them," she said. "We find the truth around them. And if the truth hurts." She looked at him, deep, steady, unflinching. "Truth always hurts, but lies kill." Silence settled, not empty, heavy, purposeful waiting. Dunn swallowed once. "So what happens next?" Walsh lifted her rifle, eyes narrowing toward the ridge where shadows still didn't move. "Next," she said. Her voice went calm, sharp, certain. "We knock on the dark and see who answers." And in that moment, Dunn understood something he hadn't yet labeled. He wasn't following her because she outranked him. He was following her because she had already walked through battles no one else survived, and still chose dignity over destruction. Some storms shout. Hers whispered, and the world still shook. What makes a leader? Is it command? Or is it how they move when no one's watching and silence weighs heavier than orders? Walsh stood in the dry riverbed, wind threading through her hair, dust clinging to her sleeves like memory. The desert felt ancient, like it had seen men rise and fall long before uniforms and flags tried to claim purpose here. Out in the dunes, night creatures clawed softly under sand, searching for warmth or prey. Humans were no different. Dunn checked his rifle, then checked it again, habit mixing with nerves. Jacob scribbled coordinates softly, his pencil shaking like thought itself was trembling. The liaison fumbled with a comm unit, scrubbing interference like he could erase danger through persistence alone. Walsh simply stood. Stillness wasn't absence. Stillness was readiness. Anvil approached, scarf pulled lower now so she could see his face. His eyes were desert eyes, sharp, patient, holding grief the way soldiers hold breath before breaching a door. "I've worked with Americans before," he said quietly. "Most talk too loud, you don't." Walsh didn't look at him. Talking doesn't build trust, presence does. He nodded, not as ally but as equal. "There's a village beyond the ridge," he said. "Small, silent lately, too silent. Locals say men come and go at night, supplies disappear, no questions asked." "Fear?" Walsh asked. "Fear," he confirmed, "and something else." "What?" "Respect, the wrong kind." That hit Walsh like a cold blade between shoulder blades. Fear alone was predictable. Fear mixed with admiration. That meant power was growing. Dunn listened, sweat cooling on his back. He had learned more in these hours than years of barracks bravado ever taught. Power wasn't loud. Real power was silent, like a knife waiting behind a thought. Walsh motioned to the tech, set a short-range directional antenna, passive scan, no outgoing transmissions unless emergency. Tech nodded, kneeling, hands sure. Dunn crouched beside Walsh. "Ma'am, what if the missing team is there?" Her eyes narrowed toward the ridge, scanning shadows for intention. "Then we move carefully. And if they're not, then someone else is." His throat tightened. "Hostiles." She shifted slightly. "Or friends who forgot what side they chose." Dunn swallowed. Betrayal stung deeper than bullets. He felt that truth before he understood it. The liaison approached, clearing his throat. "We should move soon. Dawn gives us away." Walsh didn't turn. "Dawn gives everyone away." He hesitated, unsure if she was agreeing or teaching. Maybe both. Jacobs exhaled softly. "Feels like the earth itself is holding its breath." Walsh finally spoke. "War doesn't always begin with shots. Sometimes it begins when everyone goes quiet at the same time." Dunn shivered, not from cold, from the kind of truth that sinks into ribs. They moved at 3:10 hours. Foot patrol low profile. Night vision goggles. Soft steps. Silent signals. Boots hitting sand like whispers. Hearts thudding slow, trained, controlled. The desert wasn't empty, it just spoke differently. A rustle here, a shifting dune there, wind cutting between rocks like teeth biting at time. Dunn stayed close, mirroring Walsh's pace. He knew if he strayed, he'd get lost, not physically, but morally. She was the compass here, not the map. They crested a rise. Walsh raised a fist, silent halt signal. Everyone froze. Below lay the village, mud walls, low roofs, courtyards shaded by crumbling stone. No lights, no movement, but still presence. The kind you don't see, you feel. "This place breathes wrong," Anvil whispered. Walsh knelt, scanning with NVG. "Readings." Jacob's voice was small. "Thermal faint, multiple heat spots, stationary, indoors, but—" "But?" Walsh asked. "No movement, like waiting. Or like bodies cooling." Walsh's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed calm. "Rules of entry." Dunn answered before thinking. "Slow, Observational, no forced doors, no bright lights, no shouting. Walsh glanced at him. Not praise, not correction, acknowledgement. "You listen," she said. He nodded, trying to be someone worth learning from. Her expression didn't change, but something softened just a fraction, barely visible. They descended. Gravel whispered under boots. A stray goat skeleton lay near a well, bleached by sun, forgotten like peace. Dunn's breath fogged faintly, nerves fighting discipline. Walsh lifted 2 fingers, halt. Then pointed, doorway left. Dunn nodded, checking field of fire. She signaled again, Jacob's right flank. Liaison rear watch. Anvil point backup. The team split like water flowing around stone. Walsh approached a door, weathered wood, rope handle, bits of dried mud flacking off untouched for days. She placed her palm flat, temperature cold, no recent contact. She didn't open it. Instead, she whispered, people who move carefully lived long enough to learn why. Then she stepped aside, letting silence measure the space. Dunn watched her, learning not tactics but mindset. War wasn't force. War was patience sharpened by consequence. There, Jacobs hissed softly, pointing. Movement. Something shifting behind a window slit. Dunn's finger twitched on trigger. Walsh tapped his wrist lightly, a silent hold. A voice rose inside. Not loud, not afraid, calm like someone who didn't believe danger existed. A child's voice. Dunn blinked, kids. Walsh didn't ease. Weapons use children too. It wasn't cynicism, it was experience, and it tasted bitter. She motioned. Jacobs, non-threatening call-out in local dialect. Jacobs inhaled, then spoke gently. We are here to check for safety. Come out slowly. Silence. Then the door cracked open. A girl stepped out, 11 maybe, eyes too old for her face, holding a metal bowl not as offering but shield. Behind her another child, younger, trembling. Walsh lowered her weapon, slow, deliberate, so the children saw control, not surrender. Where are your parents? She asked gently. The older child's lip trembled. Gone. How long? 3 days. The same time the intel team vanished. Walsh knelt, lowering herself to the girl's eye level. Did soldiers come here? The girl nodded, slow, terrified. Did they hurt you? No. Voice shaking. Not us. Who? She hesitated, then pointed toward the ridge they came from, not behind them, ahead. Dunn's stomach dropped. Jacobs whispered, the missing team was supposed to be north, not east. Walsh's eyes narrowed. Plans change when survival does. The liaison stepped forward, voice too sharp with worry. Why would a team change direction without radio? Walsh didn't answer. She touched the girl's shoulder softly. You're safe now. The child flinched, instinctive recoil like touch itself once betrayed her. Walsh didn't take offense, she understood. Trust was earned slowly, especially in places where promises cost lives. She handed the girl her water canteen. Drink, share. The child held it like holy glass. Small hands. Huge world. Walsh turned to the team. New vector, we move east. Jacobs frowned, but command. Command isn't here, she said flatly. We follow reality, not orders on a map written by someone who's never heard a bullet pass their ear. The liaison shifted uncomfortably. We have to report this deviation. Walsh stepped close, not threatening, grounding. You have to do what your agency demands. I have to keep us alive. Those goals do not always align. He swallowed hard. Are you saying? I'm saying mission command requires moral autonomy. If you can't handle that, stay here and radio command like a good bureaucrat. The words weren't cruel, they were simply true. The liaison didn't respond. Motivation shifted behind his eyes, fear of being dead weight mixing with awakening. Walsh looked at Dunn. "You ready?" "Not really," he whispered. "Good," she said. "People who are ready do stupid things. People who are aware stay alive." He nodded. The children spoke softly behind them, not in fear but hope. Humans cling to hope even if it cuts their palms. Walsh watched the horizon, shadowed ridges marking danger and destiny both. "Someone's moving in these sands," she murmured. "Someone disciplined, someone quiet." "Like us?" Dunn asked. She shook her head. "Quieter." A faint metallic click echoed from the hills. Not gun cocking. Not equipment drop. More like a radio latch. Or a rifle safety shifting by accident or intent. Jacobs whispered, "They're watching." Walsh didn't raise her weapon. She simply breathed slow, controlled, fearless by choice, not nature. "Let them watch," she said. "Watching is weakness, acting is power." Dunn felt heat in his chest, admiration mixed with dread. "What's our next move?" he asked. Walsh's answer came soft, steady, inevitable. "We find the people who vanished. Then we find the people who made them disappear. And after that—" Walsh's eyes hardened, steel dipped in old loss. "Then we make sure silence doesn't swallow anyone else tonight." The desert wind picked up, dust swirled, children clung to each other, the world held its breath again. War wasn't coming. It was already here, hiding in dunes and watching from ridges with patient teeth. And Walsh, quiet, calm, unyielding, stepped into the dark like she had been born from it. Not to destroy. To remind the darkness it didn't own everything. Sometimes dignity doesn't whisper. It moves first. What breaks first in a mission? The body, the plan, or the silence between people learning who they are in the dark? Hours before dawn, the desert stretched ahead like an endless, unfinished sentence. Sand whispered under boots, wind dragging grit across faces like nature testing resolve. The night wasn't just cold, it was watchful. Every dune felt like an eyelid half open, and somewhere in the hills, unseen eyes watched back. Walsh moved first, footsteps ghost-soft, rifle low, senses open. Not paranoid, prepared. Paranoia is fear that has lost discipline. Preparation is fear that knows its purpose. Dunn walked just behind her, posture tight but controlled, breath steady like someone forcing calm into existence one inhale at a time. Jacob scanned the ridges through thermal every few steps, whispering coordinates to himself like prayers to technology. The liaison kept glancing at Walsh, like he wasn't sure if he was witnessing expertise or something more unsettling. A person unafraid not because danger wasn't real, but because she had walked through worse and come back carrying ghosts instead of excuses. Anvil led point, silenced pistol tucked, scarf pulled tight, steps leaving only half prints, the mark of someone who learned stealth from survival, not training manuals. They didn't talk much. Desert missions didn't reward noise. And silence teaches more than words ever could. Finally Dunn broke it, low voice, respectful. "Commander." "Speak," she murmured. "You ever lose someone on a mission and still have to lead right after?" The air shifted, not colder, heavier. Walsh didn't stop walking. She didn't exhale too fast. Only her eyes moved, memories flickering like distant flares. "Yes," she said quietly. "How'd you keep going?" Dunn asked. She didn't look back. "I didn't have the luxury of stopping." He nodded slowly. Pain understands pain even if it doesn't have names yet. Jacob spoke gently, cautious. "Was that Kandahar?" Walsh slowed but did not turn. When she answered, her voice wasn't cold. It was human in a way that hurt to hear. "Kandahar wasn't a place," she said. "It was a moment." Dunn swallowed. "What happened?" Walsh stopped walking. Everyone froze, not because of danger but gravity. She faced the desert, not the team, speaking like someone opening a door only a little. "We split to extract a downed pilot. My partner, Sergeant Hale, went left flank. I went right. Her voice stayed level, but the quiet around her thickened, as if the desert paused to listen. We had comms until we didn't. A breath, not shaky, sharpened. By the time I reached him, he was still alive. Barely, but we were pinned. I dragged him 2 clicks under fire. Dunn's jaw tightened. He knew what 2 kilometers under bullets looked like even if he'd never done it. I felt him stop breathing halfway, Walsh said, but I kept pulling anyway. Not because I thought I could save him, because I couldn't leave him. Silence. Earnest. Heavy enough to break bone if held wrong. You think that makes you strong, the liaison said quietly, cautious curiosity pushing past fear. Walsh shook her head once. No, it made me human. Strength came later, when I had to lead the next day as if I wasn't carrying his weight still. Dunn lowered his gaze, reverence, not pity. Did you ever forgive yourself? Walsh looked at the horizon like forgiveness lived there, but never walked closer. Forgiveness isn't the goal, she said quietly. Responsibility is. Jacobs wiped his eyes subtly, embarrassed to feel something. The liaison stared like someone realizing he'd been measuring this woman in the wrong units entirely. Dunn nodded, and now we find the missing team. We find what truth left behind, she corrected. People can lie, silence doesn't. She motioned forward, pace resuming. The desert exhaled again as they moved. By first light, dunes began to glow faint orange, shadows long and jagged like scars across sand. The team crested a ridge and stopped. Below, a makeshift encampment. Canvas torn. Tracks in sand. 3 fire pits cold. 1 field radio smashed against rock. And 5 sets of footprints leading east, only 3 returning. Jacobs whispered, 2 missing, 2 made it back, then disappeared. Or were taken, Dunn murmured. Walsh crouched, fingers brushing prints, size, depth, direction. Footprints staggered, she said. 1 injured, carried weight on left, other dragged at one point. Jacobs knelt beside her. Friendly or hostile pattern? Friendly trying to escape, she answered. Hostiles following from a distance, letting them run, then deciding when to strike. Dunn frowned. Why let them run? Walsh stood slowly, something dark sharpening in her gaze. Because fear breaks people more efficiently than bullets. The liaison's voice wavered. This isn't insurgent behavior, this is trained. Walsh nodded, disciplined, patient, organized. Rogue mercenaries, Dunn asked. Maybe, or worse, loyal soldiers who became loyal to the wrong cause. A chill skittered across Jacob's spine. Inside job type loyalty. Walsh didn't answer, which was an answer. Anvil raised binoculars. There's movement east, small ridge nest, camouflage net, might be a watch post. Walsh's voice dropped, quiet, controlled, surgical. Done with me. Jacobs overwatch, liaison stays back, Anvil flank left silent. They moved like a single organism. No questions, just obedience born from trust earned through truth, not authority. Dunn's breath steadied as they crawled up the ridge. Sweat tracked dirt across his cheek. Each foot forward felt like stepping deeper into who he wanted to be. Walsh froze suddenly, flattening. Dunn mirrored instantly. Voices ahead. Low, confident. Speaking English. Not local. American cadence. Not mercenaries. Soldiers. Dunn's blood ran cold. He whispered so faint only Walsh could hear. Friendly. Her answer came almost without voice. No such thing out here until proven. They edged forward, peered down. 2 men in tactical gear. American ex-military style. No flags. No unit patches. No insignia. A third figure sat bound, slumped against rock. Head covered. Body bruised. Uniform torn. A missing operator. Dunn tensed, we move. Walsh didn't rush, she watched, always watched. One hostile nudged the captive with his boot. Command thinks she won't talk. They underestimated her. She. Dunn's heart jerked. A woman fellow operator hurt, alone. The second man lit a cigarette, voice dripping entitlement. We break her spirit, she talks. They always do. Walsh's jaw flexed once. Not rage, calculation under emotion. Dunn whispered, trembling slightly, we need to act. Walsh placed 2 fingers on his forearm, steady pressure. Not restraint, grounding. If we move now, we expose the team. We wait, we analyze, we strike clean. She could. I know, Walsh whispered. Pain doesn't scare me. Losing mission integrity does. Dunn clenched teeth, then nodded. Trust hurts sometimes, but ego wasn't leading him. The cigarette man leaned down to the captive. You should have taken our offer. Could have been on the winning side. Walsh's eyes hardened to metal. Winning side. That meant ideology, recruitment, turned assets. This wasn't chaos, this was organized shadow military. The woman on the ground coughed, weak but defiant. I don't join traitors. One captor snarled, raising his rifle butt. Walsh moved. Not explosive, silent, pure precision, a predator deciding mercy was over. One hand signal. Anvil flanked wide. Dunn followed Walsh's glide to the left side. No warning. No threat call. Just action. Walsh slipped behind cigarette man like night learning to bleed. Arm across throat, knife under jaw, silence extraction. He dropped with no sound, eyes wide not from fear but shock at how death had arrived too calm. Dunn hit the second, not veteran grace but controlled violence learned fast. Quick grapple, forearm jam, takedown. Sand kicked up, man thrashed, Dunn held. Walsh turned, knife still slick with necessary truth. Hold him. Dunn pressed knee, weapon drawn. The bound woman panted, lifting her head slightly. Eyes met Walsh's, relief breaking through pain. You took your time, she rasped. Walsh cut her restraints. We move fast when it matters. We wait when it saves more than one life. She nodded, blood trickling from temple. That was respect language between warriors, understanding, not applause. Walsh crouched, voice low, how many? The rescued operative coughed. At least 7, American gear, 1 ex-ranger in charge, call sign Ember. Her eyes darkened. They want to build their own war. Dunn felt ice crawl his spine. Walsh nodded, once like a verdict had been confirmed inside her bones. The living hostile stared up at her, breathing hard. You don't understand, he hissed. The world needs cleansing. America is weak. We rebuild strength. Walsh didn't let him finish. You confuse strength with cruelty, she said softly. He spat blood. We're the future. Walsh's gaze sharpened, pain and conviction merging, until they became something like quiet wrath. No, she whispered. People who abandon conscience have no future. They just leave ruin behind them. He sneered, you won't kill me. Walsh leaned close, calm, too calm. Calm that came from a lifetime learning which monsters deserved mercy and which deserved memory. I don't kill broken men, she whispered. I expose them. His face drained. Dunn watched, stunned, reverent. Killing was easy. Accountability was harder. Walsh stood, tie him, gag, move. They moved. The rescued woman limped but kept pace. Walsh, she murmured, voice raw, I knew they'd send someone strong. I didn't think they'd send someone silent. Walsh didn't smile. Silence isn't absence, it's aim. Dunn looked at her, really looked and understood. She didn't fight to prove strength. She fought to protect dignity, hers and others, in a world trying to erase it. The sun edged over dunes, first light catching the edge of coming battle. War wasn't escalating. It was awakening. Walsh lifted her rifle, voice steady as dawn. We found one, now we find the rest. And the ones who took them, the rescued woman whispered. Walsh's eyes turned fierce and heartbreak soft all at once. We will show them, she said slowly, that no one survives after angering the quiet ones. And for the first time, Dunn understood why rumors called her a storm. Not because she destroyed loudly. Because she arrived after the damage was done, to restore something the world kept losing. Honor without applause. Justice without ego. Strength without cruelty. Sometimes heroes roar. Sometimes heroes whisper. And sometimes, heroes come carrying silence sharper than any blade. What does the end of a mission look like? Gunfire, victory shouts, flags raised. Sometimes, the end looks like dawn creeping across a desert where silence is heavier than warfare, because the true battle is no longer outside. It's inside the people walking out of it. Walsh led them east, the rescued operator supported between Dunn and Anvil. The captured defector stumbled behind them, wrists bound, breathing hard through dust and regret. Every few minutes he muttered something under the gag, maybe panic, maybe prayers. Some men pray only when they fear consequences, not when they seek forgiveness. Walsh never looked back at him. Punishment wasn't her ambition, clarity was. The desert stretched endlessly, like a battlefield trying to remember it once held civilizations, not conflict. Dunn walked close beside her now. He no longer matched her steps because he felt small beside her. He matched them because he understood their rhythm. Discipline wasn't suppression. Discipline was choosing who you wanted to become every second, especially when comfort begged you to look away. Jacobs checked the wind, scanning for drones. Thermal sweeps clear, he whispered. Nothing moving, too quiet. Walsh nodded. They're not running, they're planning. Why wouldn't they retreat after losing 2 men? Dunn asked quietly. She didn't answer at first. She crouched, touched the sand, watched it sift through her fingers, a gesture more spiritual than tactical. People who believe they are righteous don't run, she said softly. They posture, they retaliate, they want to be seen. And us? Dunn asked. She looked at him, tired eyes steady. We don't seek to be seen, we seek to end harm. Ahead a shape rose out of the dunes, a half-buried bunker. Steel door, weather-beaten camouflage tarps. Makeshift antenna, barely visible in sand. Jacobs whispered, signal emissions were faint but present. This must be it. Walsh studied the bunker entrance, one door, no windows, high ground behind. A killing funnel if approached wrong. The rescued operator strained to speak through dryness and pain. There's a side shaft, north face, small, security uses it. Walsh nodded. Dunn, Jacobs flank north, Anvil with me. She glanced at the liaison. You stay back with her and the prisoner. The liaison swallowed, unsure if that was safety or test. Copy. Dunn paused. We breach. No, Walsh murmured. We listen first. They moved. Sand clung to boots, legs, thought. The bunker felt alive, breathing, waiting. The kind of silence buildings carry when pain has soaked into walls. Walsh crouched near a vent opening, barely audible voices drifting out. She resisted longer than expected, admirable really. That voice steady, cold, Ember. Another answered lower, shaking slightly. Walsh is here, I saw signs. Ember chuckled, like cruelty sipping confidence. Good, we wanted her. Walsh didn't flinch. Her pulse didn't spike. Rage didn't pull her like gravity. She inhaled slow, even like calm was a weapon and she had mastered its blade. Dunn's gut dropped. They came for you. Walsh nodded once. Silent reputations draw violent men. Anvil's hand tightened on his pistol. We fight. We think, Walsh said, then we move. Inside, Ember continued, voice smooth like oil spilled on belief. They call her a hero. They don't understand heroes delay progress. We aren't rebels, we're evolution. Dunn felt bile rise. Walsh felt nothing external. Her emotions moved too deep for surface ripples. Evolution doesn't torture bound soldiers, Walsh whispered. Jacobs murmured, he thinks brutality is conviction. No, she replied. He thinks conviction excuses brutality. It doesn't. Inside, metal scraped, a weapon loaded, steps moved. He planned for you, Dunn whispered. Good, Walsh said. I planned for him. Jacobs breathed out. How do we breach? Walsh didn't answer immediately. Strategies formed like constellations behind her eyes, quiet, precise, inevitable. Finally, we don't storm a bunker full of men who lost their moral compass. We extract truth, then we break the myth they built around themselves. Dunn frowned. Myth. Violence doesn't make someone powerful, Walsh murmured. Belief does. You destroy men like this by destroying their ideology, not their bodies. That means, Jacob swallowed, we confront. Walsh nodded once. The confrontation wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Walsh stepped into the open clearing before the bunker door. Not behind cover, not hidden, standing like someone who understood the cost of showing yourself and accepted it. Dunn's heart hammered. Ma'am. She raised a hand, calm. Inside, voices stopped. Metal clinked, boots scraped, suspense breathed like dust in light. Then Ember emerged, tall, confident, rifle slung but hand ready, scar across cheek, eyes too sure of themselves. Behind him, 3 defectors flanked. You could have stayed invisible, Ember called out. You could have lived a quiet life. Walsh stepped forward, hands loose, weapon down, not surrender, discipline. Quiet lives don't suit me, she said softly. I serve where harm grows. Ember smiled. And you think you can stop what's coming? No, Walsh said. I can prevent what should never come. He laughed. Morality doesn't build nations. Neither does betrayal, she replied. Ember's jaw ticked. We fight for strength, for purging weakness. Strength isn't domination, Walsh said. Strength is restraint. Strength is protecting what can't protect itself. Spoken like someone who never led real men, Ember sneered. Walsh's voice didn't rise, it deepened. I led men who never needed domination to stand. A muscle jumped in Ember's neck, insecurity flashing through arrogance. You killed 2 of mine, he said. They killed their honor first. Careful, Ember growled. We could break you slowly. Walsh held his gaze with quiet steel. Pain isn't your weapon, it's your addiction. Dunn whispered, breath trembling. She's dismantling him. Not physically. Ideologically. Ember's certainty faltered. You think people follow kindness? No, Walsh said. They follow integrity. Kindness is optional. Integrity is not. A silence thick as grief fell. Then Ember raised his rifle. Walsh didn't flinch. So this is how you lead, she murmured. Fear, force, fragile ego disguised as ideology. Ember's hand shook, barely noticeable, but it betrayed him more than any failure would. Dunn raised his weapon behind cover. Walsh whispered, not yet. Ember snapped. You think silence makes you powerful. Walsh stepped forward again, like dawn challenging night. Silence makes me deliberate. Your shouting makes you afraid. His face broke, rage boiling through insecurity. He fired. Walsh moved first, not away, but toward his line of fire, closing distance before gunfire could speak fully. Anvil's shot cracked from the flank, dropping one hostile. Jacobs' second round clipped another. Dunn rushed on instinct, covering Walsh's flank. Ember swung rifle butt. Walsh ducked, drove shoulder into his sternum, controlled force, not rage. He fell back, sand flying. She pinned him without choking him, not cruelty, correction. He snarled, spitting sand. Finish it, that's what warriors do. Walsh stared down, breath calm. No, she said. That's what cowards do when they fear accountability. He struggled, wild, broken. You think justice saves the world? She leaned close, voice soft as a wound closing. No, but justice saves us from becoming you. Ember's face crumbled, not in pain but devastation. Ideology collapsing. The worst punishment for zealots isn't death. It's losing the mirror they used to admire themselves. Walsh restrained him, zip-tied wrists stood. Dunn approached, chest heaving. We done. Walsh looked around, wounded, captured, rescued, team intact, sun rising. No, she murmured, we're changed. Extraction came hours later. Helicopters beating the air, dust spiraling. Medics rushed. Cuffs clinked. The rescued operator smiled weak, whispering thanks to Walsh like gratitude weighed more than pain. Dunn stood beside her, quiet, changed. Ma'am, why didn't you kill him? Walsh watched Ember being loaded onto the bird, rage hollowed into shame. Because some men need to live long enough to face themselves, she said. Death would have been mercy. Dunn exhaled, understanding settling deep. Was it worth it? He asked softly. Walsh closed her eyes briefly, exhaustion finally catching muscle, bone, memory. When she opened them, dawn painted her face in quiet resilience. Worth isn't measured by peace, she said. It's measured by what we refuse to become on the way to it. Dunn nodded. He wouldn't forget that. Walsh watched the desert one last time, wind smoothing footprints like time forgiving tired souls. She whispered, almost to herself, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that never raised itself. Dunn glanced at her. What now? She breathed out, steady as sunrise. Now we heal what violence tried to break. And the world. She half smiled, tired, sincere, unbroken. The world doesn't need louder warriors. It needs quieter ones. He let the words settle, like truth finding home. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts, and leaves the world wondering how silence became strength.